Today on the official Marvel podcast, we dive into the world of The Man Without Fear with author Alex Segura to discuss his new book, Enemy of My Enemy, a Daredevil Marvel crime novel.
I wanted to get into Matt's head, which I think a novel provides you with a lot of internal stuff that you might not get on the comics page or in other media. Like, you really get into Matt's head and his struggles and his conflicts. He's your POV character for most of the book.
Plus, we look back at Season 1 of Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again as we get ready for the Season 2 premiere.
And we stay in Hell's Kitchen for a sneak peek at the all-new Jessica Jones comic book series, Alias Red Band, with writer Sam Humphries.
When you read this, it's almost like you have to wipe the soot of New York City off your fingertips right off the book.
I'm Anthony Carboni.
I'm Victoria Ying.
And this is the official Marvel podcast.
If you're looking to get into the spirit of The Man Without Fear before Daredevil Born Again returns next week, we've got just the thing. Enemy of My Enemy, a Daredevil Marvel crime novel, is a gripping new story written by LA Times Book Prize winner Alex Segura.
And not only is Alex the author of this new crime novel, he might just be the biggest Daredevil fan out there. Here to tell us about Enemy of My Enemy and why Matt Murdock is defending his greatest enemy's alleged murderer in court is Alex Segura himself. Alex, I'm very excited for Enemy of My Enemy here, a Daredevil crime novel. I love this idea. How did this come up?
Oh, thanks. It was really exciting. Adam Wilson over at Hyperion Avenue reached out and said this line was coming together and kind of talked about a few of the other authors, Lisa Jewell, who kicked it off with the Jessica Jones novel, and Sean S.A. Cosby, who's doing the Luke Cage book. And they asked me if I wanted to do Daredevil, which I'd made no bones of my love for Daredevil and my passion for the character and his world. So it felt like a good fit. I've written novels set in New York. So Secret Identity, one of my more recent crime novels, was a very New York-centric 1970s crime thriller. So it felt like it could translate very easily into Hell's Kitchen and Matt's very complicated and messy world.
Yeah. So when you're deciding on the idea for a longer Daredevil story that you're going to tell in the format of a novel, how do you come up with it? And what did you land on?
Yeah, for me, whenever I pick up a character or a property that exists and will exist after I contribute, I try to get to the crux and the core of the character. You shake off all the barnacles and what is the core thing about Daredevil? And for Matt Murdock, it's really the idea of seeking justice in the courtroom, but also seeking justice in the street. It's a bit of cognitive dissonance a little bit because, he's in the courtroom fighting for his clients and fighting for justice, but then he puts on this devil suit and starts punching people. So it's how can I test that to the highest degree? And the thing that then appeared in my mind was, what if one of his greatest villains was murdered and he had to defend the killer? Part of him is great, I don't have to deal with this guy anymore. The other part of him, once he realizes something is amiss, is this person deserves justice, and I'm the only person that can do that for him as Matt Murdock. And so he's kind of approaching the problem from opposing ends, and that is a recipe for disaster. And part of me, having been a lifelong Daredevil fan, really wanted to evoke something that people can feel connected to and feel like, oh, this is an important classic. Really trying to evoke the things that feel like a classic Daredevil story. And that means Matt as a lawyer, Matt dealing with a lot of personal drama. He's a messy guy. He makes complicated, not great choices sometimes in his personal life. And also the weight of the challenge of wearing this costume, but also trying to be a good lawyer and an honest lawyer. So that I know that eats at him too.
Yeah. I love this idea of Matt having to deal with I like that this villain is gone. What I love is it's not just any villain.
Right.
You weren't just somebody that is a B or C tier villain that we see in Daredevil gets murdered and Matt has to deal with that.
Yeah, it's not Stiltman or, no offense to Stiltman fans.
First of all, Stiltman is A level.
Yeah, okay.
We're big Stiltman fans here on the official Marvel podcast, okay? But maybe almost as big a rival for Daredevil as Stiltman is the Kingpin. You killed the Kingpin, man.
Yeah. And it was honestly one of these things where when I pitched the high concept to my editor, I was like, there's no way I have to have a plan B because this feels really challenging to accomplish. But They were good with it, and this is, you learn this right away pretty quickly, is that the main suspect in the murder of the Kingpin is Frank Castle, the Punisher. So it creates a lot of problems for Matt, because in an ideal world, the Kingpin would be gone and the Punisher would be in jail, and Matt slash Daredevil has gotten two major problems off his plate, but part of him can't let that happen because he knows something is wrong.
I always love when Matt has to defend someone in court that he does not like, would not like to see on the streets in New York. And I think Frank is just the quintessential version of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, because morally, he is at the polar opposite to how Daredevil approaches being a vigilante. And I think Daredevil's approach is, I'm doing this because I have to, because there are failures in the legal system, but I'm trying to help. Like, it's all going kind of to the same place. Whereas, Castle has decided to be judge, jury, and executioner, and that is morally in opposition to Daredevil and what he wants to do. So that, on top of the Kingpin being the victim, felt like a really interesting story box to put him into and just see how he gets out of it. But nothing is really as it seems. So I hope people enjoy it. And I hope it does feel like a fun Daredevil adventure for people that are fans, but also for newcomers. It should read like John Grisham meets superheroes.
Yeah. And you have written sort of thriller novels before. How is it different working with these sort of characters than it is, writing a more traditional thriller?
I tried my best to make it read like just a traditional thriller, and it helps that Matt's powers, while amazing and super, are easy to explain. We're not talking about cosmic Silver Surfer, Galactus type stuff. It's very street level. Matt's powers give him a heads up, give him an advantage, but he's, as far as the Marvel pantheon, he's one of the more grounded heroes. So the supernatural or superpowered elements are kind of low in terms of volume. So I just treated them like I would a traditional crime novel. I wanted to get into Matt's head, which I think a novel provides you with a lot of internal stuff that you might not get on the comics page or in other media. Like, you really get into Matt's head and his struggles and his conflicts. He's your POV character for most of the book. But yeah, I think Matt is the perfect noir protagonist because he is so conflicted. He wants to do good, and that's super relatable. But sometimes he goes about it the wrong way, and he leans too hard on his own ego and his own experience. And by the time he listens to his friends, it's usually too late.
Yeah. You've written comics, many comics before. You've worked with Marvel characters. When you are taking these characters that we mostly know from comics, from TV, from animation, from these highly visual mediums into something that's like a more deeper prose-based medium, how does your comic book writing history influence that? And how does it change the way you work with the characters when you're writing a novel?
That's a great question. I think when you're writing comics, as a writer, you're basically kind of like the screenwriter. You're giving the script to the artist, and the artist is the director, the costume designer, the cinematographer. They make all those visual decisions, and you can make suggestions, but at the end of the day, you rely on the artists and their amazing ability to bring your story to life. And the actual words that readers see on the page are your captions and your dialogue, which are a small part of the script. For prose, like, it's all on your shoulders, but I like to think that the reader is the artist. Like, I'm relying on the reader to visualize this story in their mind. And so by giving them enough to do that, that's my job. And so I tend not to over describe in the prose. Like, I give you enough so you can create that movie or story in your mind, and to keep the momentum going, keep it exciting, keep it interesting. I treat each chapter like a little vignette or episode, and leave on a good cliffhanger or leave on a good beat so people feel like they need to keep reading. I want people to read this in one sitting, not to like put it down and come back to it a few weeks later. I wanted it to feel like it had the same energy of a great Daredevil comic, which is hard to do because it's a whole different medium.
What a fun challenge, though. What an absolutely fun challenge to take on. I love that. And without getting too much into spoiler territory here, was there a bit of the book? Was there a scene or something that you hit where you're like, oh, I did it. That's Daredevil. This is so cool.
Oh man. All I'm going to say is there's a twist at the end that I hope I stuck the landing on. That's all.
Okay. And what do you hope, when all is said and done, people who are huge Daredevil fans, people who are new to Daredevil, anybody who reads the book, what are you hoping people take away from Enemy of My Enemy?
Well, first and foremost, I hope they feel like it's a page turner that keeps them entertained and engaged and interested in these characters. If you're a newcomer to Daredevil, it'll hopefully serve as a nice introduction to his world, his supporting cast, his villains. We see a lot of them in different situations. We see how Matt fits into the greater Marvel universe, which I think is always fun. But at the end of the day, as a writer, you always want to entertain. And my hope is that people will pick up the book and not be able to put it down.
Awesome. Alex Segura, I'm so looking forward to Enemy of My Enemy. I'm a huge Daredevil fan. I love your work, and I'm excited to read the book.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Let me know what you think.
Hey, Anthony, can I talk to you about the devil?
Absolutely. Nothing would please me more than chatting about Hell's Kitchen's favorite costumed vigilante, Daredevil.
Yeah, that's totally who I meant, for sure. But since we're on the subject, let's reminisce about season 1 of Marvel television series Daredevil Born Again.
I would love to. We began season 1 of the series at Josie's Bar.
The partners of the Hell's Kitchen law firm, Nelson, Murdoch, and Page, and close friends Foggy Nelson, Matt Murdock, and Karen Page, are enjoying an after-work drink. They also raise a glass to Detective Cherry, their ally at the NYPD, who is celebrating his impending retirement.
To Cherry, may you be in heaven a full half hour, for the devil knows you're dead!
The festivities come to an abrupt end, however, when Benjamin Dex Poindexter, aka Bullseye, the villain who can't miss, tracks down and kills Foggy.
Man, losing Foggy that early in the show was such a gut punch. Really well done, and that loss was felt the entire season.
It's such a gut punch, in fact, that when Matt Murdock jumps into action as the vigilante Daredevil and finally gets his hands on Bullseye, we understand why he might want to chuck Bullseye off a roof, which is exactly what happens. Bullseye survives the fall, and Daredevil listens to Karen holding his oldest friend as he breathes his last breath.
You stay with me. You stay with me. No.
We jump forward a year later.
That would be my superpower, by the way.
Traveling forward a year?
1 year exactly, yeah.
I could see how that could be a useful power in certain circumstances. Anyway, a year later, a lot has changed, and in a classic superhero move, Matt has quit being Daredevil.
Superheroes do love hanging it up, don't they? In addition, Matt forms a new law firm with former DA Kirsten McDuffie and hires retired Detective Cherry as their consultant. Karen Page has moved to San Francisco, and everyone's favorite summer suit-wearing gangster, Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin, moves back to New York with grand ambitions.
I've been informed that I have the 25,000 signatures. It's time.
Fisk is back in New York, but while he was away, his wife Vanessa was left to watch over his criminal empire, and she did a bang-up job.
They respect the money I make them. Protection makes people scared. Profit makes them loyal.
I don't want this getting back to Fisk, but Vanessa killed it. Organized crime was finally that, organized. So I can understand that when Fisk waltzes back in from his vacation, Vanessa is a bit, perturbed.
Not only does this guy just abandon her, but when he does show up again, he begins making declarations like, "We do not do crime anymore," and "Help me be mayor." Side note, they don't ever stop doing crimes.
No, there's a guy named Adam locked up in Fisk's lair. Sure, he's Vanessa's secret lover, but kidnapping is a full-on crime. And yes, Fisk has decided to drop the seedy underworld for a more respectable one, politics. Fisk thinks he has what it takes to win the mayoral election and shape New York into the city he believes it should be.
And guess what? He wins. I'm sure this power grab won't come back to bite the Big Apple in the end. But while all this wonderful chicanery is happening, Matt is informed of a potential client, Hector Ayala. Hector was minding his own business one night when he witnessed a man, Nicky Torres, being assaulted by two other men on the subway platform. Fortunately, Hector has some cat-like reflexes.
Hector's secret identity is the superhero White Tiger.
You're a thief of joy.
That's my superpower.
In the process of saving Torres, one of the two attackers tripped and fell right in front of the express train. And to add to the unfortunate sequence of events...
NYPD, do not move!
Yeah, those two guys were cops. So Hector found himself in a spot of trouble. Enter Matt Murdock and Kirsten McDuffie, attorneys at law. Matt sends Cherry to dig up info about Hector, who discovers his secret identity as White Tiger and passes the information on to Matt.
All Matt has to do is find this Nicky Torres fellow who can clear up the whole mess. Oh wait, weren't there 2 corrupt cops? Where's that other cop from the subway, Officer Powell?
Well, Powell and yet another corrupt cop.
I'm starting to get the feeling there was a bigger issue at hand with the NYPD.
They track down Torres to an apartment and are planning on silencing him for good. Fortunately, Matt has also tracked down Torres and decides to disrupt their plans.
Go ahead.
He's a lawyer.
Don't do it. No, don't do this. Don't do this. You don't want to do this.
Turns out Matt was right. Those 2 cops immediately regret their actions as Matt brutally takes down both men. The beatdown is Matt's first tiny step towards donning the Daredevil mantle again. And later at the courthouse, Matt's witness, Nicky Torres, realizes he's going up against some powerful people and lies under oath, saying he was never assaulted in the subway.
So with no other recourse, Matt blurts out in a packed courtroom that Hector is the masked vigilante White Tiger.
With the secret now public, Matt is able to bring in witnesses that can attest to the White Tiger's good deeds throughout the years. After overwhelming testimony on Hector's behalf, the jury finds the defendant...
Pause for dramatic flair.
Not guilty.
Hooray, right? Except for one thing. Everyone, including the corrupt cops, know Hector is the White Tiger, so now there's no way for him to hide. Matt warns Hector.
I mean, you know that, right? You can't ever put that suit back on.
But it's not that easy for Hector. He feels a responsibility and a calling to be the White Tiger.
When White Tiger goes on patrol later that night, a man wearing the skull symbol of the violent vigilante, the Punisher, murders Hector. But that couldn't possibly have been the Punisher, right?
We'll get there, but back at City Hall, Fisk has taken his staff on a field trip to the Red Hook port.
This port is a black eye on the face of the city. Has been for a while. I think we can do better.
Oh boy. You know, at face value, that sounds like a really positive and helpful change for the city.
Maybe we judged him too quickly?
Oh wait, he's still got Vanessa's secret lover in a cage back in his hidden lair, right?
Right. Totally a bad guy.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Meanwhile, Hector's niece, Angela Del Toro, confronts Matt with a theory that the same cops Hector was trying to stop were responsible for his death. Matt tries to comfort her, saying that the killer will be brought to justice.
But neither of them really buys that. Angela begins to look into the last case her uncle was working on, involving some mystery man named Muse. And Matt runs off to examine the crime scene where Hector was shot and finds a bullet casing with the Punisher's skull symbol etched onto it.
Matt hunts down everyone's favorite grump, Frank Castle, aka the Punisher. Even though Frank had nothing to do with Hector's death, Matt demands he take responsibility for the masked cops who are misusing his symbol.
And Frank demands that Matt be honest with himself for once in his life. This scene.
Every time I start moving, I still hear my little boy. I see him. And I hear his voice. He says, "Get him, Daddy." Every last single one of them, get him. And that's why I do what I do. That's why he's eating at you.
This is one of those scenes that makes the show so special. These philosophical debates of vengeance versus justice.
You really understand where Frank is coming from, and more importantly, you understand why Matt has to fight so hard not to end up in the same sort of mindset, the same circumstances like Frank. Matt wants to give in to the violence and hatred, but he's hoping to be something different, something more in this world, something actually of service to the people.
While this is happening, Fisk is pushing ahead with his plans to remake the Red Hook port, and he tries dangling a very elegant carrot, hosting a fundraiser with the city's elites.
But the elites don't care for this particular carrot, apparently, and they reject Fisk's push to change the Red Hook port.
Around the same time, Angela is able to hunt down the masked villain Muse, the artist/serial killer who's been using his victims' blood to paint murals all over the city.
Gross. Fisk learns about Muse and uses the killing spree as an opportunity to launch his anti-vigilante task force. It includes New York's most corrupt officers, including the ones responsible for White Tiger's death, and refocuses them on eliminating any masked vigilantes in the city.
Unfortunately for Angela, she's caught by Muse and dragged down to his hideout beneath the city streets.
Angela's abduction is the final push that Matt needs to get off the bench and become born again as Daredevil.
The title of the show! Daredevil is able to find Muse's lair, and after a vicious battle, he saves Angela. However, Muse escapes and shows up at the office of Dr. Heather Glenn, a therapist who's been providing some much-needed marriage counseling to Fisk and Vanessa.
Oh, and she was actually also Muse's therapist, so a lot of success there.
Oh, and she's also been dating Matt. New York is a notoriously small town.
Daredevil makes it to Dr. Glenn just in time to save her, but in the chaos, she shoots and kills Muse.
You killed him, Matt.
You didn't have a choice.
How do you know?
I know. I know because I know you.
And also because I was secretly there as Daredevil, cough cough.
With Muse out of the way, Fisk directs the task force's attention to the newly reemerged Daredevil.
After suiting back up as Daredevil, Matt is feeling a bit nostalgic. So he stops by Josie's bar. But something Josie says...
O'Melveny's, Foggy, never finished his final round.
Triggers a revelation that changes everything.
He was celebrating early. He knew, Foggy knew the night he died, he knew he was going to win.
Apparently, the night of Foggy's death, Cherry wasn't the only one celebrating. Foggy was close to exposing Fisk and Vanessa's money laundering scheme, which means that Foggy's death was very targeted.
He knew he was going to win and somebody silenced him.
So Matt decides to crash the black and white gala and confront Fisk.
There's that white kingpin suit. Since everybody who's anybody is at this gala, Bullseye also decides to take advantage of this opportunity. He escapes from prison and heads over to the festivities to get even with the Fisk family, who left him to rot in prison.
When Matt arrives, he pieces together that it wasn't Fisk who hired Bullseye to kill Foggy, but rather Vanessa.
As Matt confronts Vanessa, Bullseye takes aim and fires. But Matt jumps in the way of the bullet, saving Fisk. With Bullseye in the wind, Fisk shuts down the power to the city and declares martial law.
After a quick stop in the ER, Matt heads home to find the Punisher waiting for him. Karen Page has returned from the West Coast and has had the good sense to ask Frank to watch over Matt. And it's a good thing she did. Fisk had sent his task force to Matt's apartment to deal with Daredevil once and for all.
This leads to an epic Daredevil-Punisher team-up and leaves Matt's apartment in flames. But you know, the New York real estate market is super chill, and I'm sure he'll find a new place soon. After the ash settles and this particular task force squad is handled, Matt and Karen find Foggy's case file. They discover that the Fisks are planning on turning the port in Red Hook, Brooklyn into their own city-state, where they can rule without worrying about pesky laws. Karen and Matt begin to gather allies to resist Kingpin and his new tyrannical rule.
At the very end of season 1, the Punisher tracks down the rest of the task force at the Red Hook port, but he's captured. Powell thinks he understands Frank and tries to convince him to join the task force, but Frank's not having it.
This is a circus.
Bunch of clowns.
How you gonna serve with you?
Probably the last mistakes those idiots will ever make, but to be continued.
And soon, on March 24th, Season 2 begins streaming on Disney+. I cannot wait to see Daredevil and his allies go up against Mayor Kingpin. But in the meantime, you can watch or rewatch Season 1 of Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again, streaming only on Disney+.
Fans were thrilled to hear that Kristen Ritter would be returning to the role of Jessica Jones for Daredevil Born Again Season 2. And we're also excited to see Jessica back where it all started. 25 years ago, Jessica Jones made her first appearance in the groundbreaking Alias comic book series by writer Brian Michael Bendis and artist Michael Gaydos. And last week saw the return of Alias investigations in a brand new comic series, Alias Red Band.
Staying true to the original mature-rated tone, Alias Red Band is a 5-issue series by writer Sam Humphries and artist Geraldo Borges. It follows Jessica Jones as she investigates some truly gruesome murders. But when her investigations start to interfere with her husband Luke Cage's duties as New York City's mayor, well, let's just say things get a little complicated.
And things get even messier when she teams up with the villainous and unpredictable Typhoid Mary. Joining me now to talk about this deadly alliance and noir crime mystery is the writer Sam Humphries. Take a listen. Hey, Sam.
Hey.
So glad to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, thanks for asking. I appreciate it. I'm excited.
So 25 years ago, writer Brian Michael Bendis and artist Michael Gaydos introduced the world to Jessica Jones within the pages of 2001's Alias #1. How has Jessica Jones evolved as a character since her debut?
Oh my God. Well, Brian and Michael, they really snapped with Jessica because it's not often that you get to see an iconic character being born before your eyes. And one of the true tests of an iconic character is that they're able to change over the years while still remaining true to that like North Star that we all fell in love with at the beginning. And it's been really exciting to see that Jessica is able to do that. Like we've already put that to the test and she remains an icon. She was a sort of, like a detective first and foremost, but we also got to see her life as a single woman struggling with her love life. And then she got married to Luke Cage and had that amazing like wedding and New Avengers and Kelly Thompson's run, which I really, really love. I'm like super fond of that run as well. Tackled a lot of that sort of intersection of detective, superhero, wife, mother in a way that I thought was super cool. And, we've seen her be a detective, a journalist, a superhero, two different iterations. She was a superhero when she was young and sort of a superhero-ish figure since we picked up with her story 25 years ago. And now we have Alias Red Band, where we get to see Jessica go into some darker, more adult territory, which has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I'd love to talk about that. Where do we find Jessica at the start of your series?
So Luke Cage is the mayor of New York City, and we find Jessica being a very awkward fit as the first lady of New York City. This is not somebody who, A, is used to being in the public eye, and B, having to obey a bunch of rules of etiquette and decorum, and also invisible rules that come with press scrutiny and electoral scrutiny. And that friction that she's feeling becomes friction in their marriage. And that friction causes her to make a decision where she steps outside of the lines that Luke has to stay within. And because that would make Luke a liability, she starts having to keep secrets from Luke, which puts her in a really difficult position.
Early in the story, Jessica stumbles on a murder mystery. What can you tell us about this case?
Well, it's definitely like a case that is, shall we say, appropriate for a red band presentation. People don't know it out there. Red band basically means like rated R. We can go further into darker territory, and I'm taking full advantage of that. Geraldo Borges, who is a fantastic artist, he and I are a big fan of very sort of like dark, gritty crime books. And when you read this, it's almost like you have to like wipe the soot of New York City off your fingertips right off the book. And right off the bat, there's this case where there's multiple murders happening in Hell's Kitchen, and they're obviously connected. What really isn't so obvious is how someone or someones are perpetrating these murders right under her nose.
How does this new status quo as First Lady of New York City affect her role as a private investigator?
Well, immediately we see that her career as a private investigator has been cut short. She has lost her private investigator's license. She lost it as a political concession from Luke to some of his political adversaries. So Jessica finds herself as frustrated as a political pawn, but also somebody who had their her career was taken away from her. But, for her, being an investigator wasn't just a career or something to do with her days. It was an identity, a place where she really found herself and constructed a new identity after she left the world of being a superhero. So this is something that really strikes to the core of who Jessica is, and having it ripped away in that way brings up a lot of emotions like sadness and anger and frustration with the feeling stuck between the man that she loves and the position that she's in. That's going to cause her to do things that she maybe never thought she would do. And for the first time in her 25 years, we're going to see Jess attempting to work with a partner, and that partner is Daredevil supervillain Typhoid Mary.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned Typhoid Mary because that was my next question. What made you want to pair these two characters up?
I mean, basically what made me want to pair them up is I thought they would hate each other right off the bat. And that sounded like a lot of fun to write. I thought they would be a terrible pairing as partners. Jessica is super cool. She's like the coolest person in the world. She's sarcastic. She's calm. Typhoid Mary is just all over the place. You know, she doesn't have a center. She's very chaotic. But they really do find themselves in a position where they need each other to work together. And Typhoid Mary is the Kingpin's wife. And with that position, she has the ability to open up doors for Jessica. But nothing is free when you work with the underworld.
So in the original Alias series, it was published under the Mature Content Max imprint. Your series has the similar Red Band label. How does the Red Band designation change how you approach storytelling?
First of all, I'm like a kid in a candy shop when it comes to the curse words and the blood. But it also allows us to push Jessica into some new realms. We've seen her deal with a lot of crime, but what happens when the crime genre overlaps with the horror genre? I like to say that every Marvel superhero story is at some point a paranormal horror because something happens that normal people can't explain, and it often has like very dramatic, violent circumstances and consequences. So I really wanted to lean into that and do it in the Red Band format where we can, you know, really see graphically what those consequences are. You know, like she's going to find herself wondering, can I go back to Luke? Can I go home? Can I go back to being a mother? Can I come back from this the same Jessica that I started it as?
Totally. I love that idea of how it's a supernatural horror. Like, that's really cool. I never thought about it that way, but that totally makes sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big horror fan. I feel like J-horror and K-horror do a really good job of blending crime with paranormal horror. So really, this was a great excuse to get paid to go back and watch some of my favorite movies.
Oh, yeah. Your series is set to put Jessica Jones and Luke Cage in a pivotal role at the center of the Marvel Universe later this year. Is there anything you can share about what fans can expect?
No. There's several people who would kill me. Are you kidding? Like, absolutely not. I can't even tell you who would kill me because it would reveal too much. I'll just say it would be CB Cebulski. That would be the next Red Band book. It would be CB Cebulski kills Sam Humphries.
The murder of Sam Humphries.
Exactly. But I can say that it's such an exciting time for Jessica Jones. It's her 25th anniversary. Kristen Ritter is bringing her back to television. And then Jessica and Luke, we're setting them up for something big at the center of the Marvel Universe. So if you want a glimpse of what's coming, then you got to pick up Alias Red Band.
Thank you so much for sharing with us all of this information about Alias Red Band. I'm sure our listeners can't wait. And yeah, thank you for taking the time out of your day for this.
Oh, my pleasure. Shout out to the listeners. I hope everybody enjoys the book. As long as you're 18 and up, bring your ID to your local comic book store. Do not get caught empty-handed.
Thank you.
The Punisher has been a compelling character in the pages of Marvel Comics since 1974. Frank Castle is the laser-focused anti-hero waging a one-man vigilante war on crime. The typical Punisher story is a violent but relatively grounded tale of vengeance, where Frank grimly delivers instant karma to criminals who seem to be otherwise untouchable. But in a multiverse as vast as Marvel's, Frank Castle has been reimagined as plenty of unorthodox variants. The Punisher has been a priest/vigilante in the Old West, a magical vampire slayer, and even taken on the role of the Cosmic Ghost Rider, a far future outer space Thanos-chasing flaming skeleton. We asked comics writer Dennis Camp, the writer of The Ultimates, what his favorite Marvel comic was, and he identified a 2004 one-shot which stands as one of the most unique and brutal alternate universe stories in Punisher history.
I just think it's one of the greatest Marvel comics of all time that not that many people talk about. Punisher: The End, a one-shot by Garth Ennis and Richard Corbin that kind of is Punisher in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, and it's just unbelievable, just filled with ideas, but all classic Ennis Punisher edge and some of the most beautiful, haunting art you've ever seen from the late, great Richard Corbin.
Punisher fans know that some of Frank Castle's bleakest stories are some of his best stories. And this one, it's bleak with a capital B. It's not for the kids, but if you can hunt down a copy at your local comic shop, you're in for a good read.
Next week on the Official Marvel Podcast, we explore the road to Armageddon with writer Chip Zdarsky and Luca Maresca as they share the latest in Wolverine: Weapons of Armageddon.
Until then, make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you listen, and hey, why not drop a comment and give us those 5 stars?
This episode of the Official Marvel Podcast was hosted by Anthony Carboni and me, Victoria Ying.
Our producers are Jasmine Estrada and Anita Flores. Additional writing by Michael Spadaccini.
Brad Barton is our Senior Manager of Audio Production and Development, and our Production Manager is Emily Godfrey.
Mixed by Zachary Goldberg.
Our theme music is by Ida Akbal.
Executive produced by Larissa Rosen.
Thanks for listening.